Good morning and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Tai and such a pleasure to be here today. And we are always excited to be on the show. And we are here. Today is the 7th of December 2021. The very first, is it the first Tuesday? Yes, the very first Tuesday in the month of December. So welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. And I am having Dr. Omotola, the great Professor Omotola, Professor Tola, Dr. Tola, anyone you want to call it.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Fantastic. So we're going to be having an interesting conversation today. As usual, we will try to talk about one or two headlines, and then we'll move over to the conversation of the day. The topic we have to discuss today is simply almost like a question. And it says, is this the end? But before then, I'd like Dr. Motola to champion um, the news review. So we're going to start with our first headline. It says, law school campuses, appropriation is the issue. Over to you, Dr. Motola.
All right. Thank you. So I'm trying to read it before. So 1 minute, please. Okay. So the headline says that yes, law school campuses appropriation is the issue, and according to the body, it's saying that the Senate not overreaching itself by venturing into this tax, which can be undo administratively by the legal education, and basically the current issue is that um, sorry, 1 minute. So apparently there's a bill that is being proposed, and the bill is requiring that um, they should improve the quality of attendance, and also that they should increase the quality of attendance to regarding law school, and also like improve quality of in terms of delivery. And so they're arguing back saying that funding is critical to making this work, and that without funding that they don't have the right to tell them what to do. And so even though some people are lauding it as a really great thing and a good thing to do, but those within the law system are pushing back, the law school system are pushing back to say, yes, it might be a good thing to do, but without funding, it's almost impossible. Any thoughts, Mr. Arutimi?
Well, the truth about it is the law school campuses, I'm sure if you remember, this was a headline on the show some time ago. And people are now looking at the fact that should it actually be increased? Of course, the issues around that is what's now leading to um, this headline. And I think that between the NBA and uh, there's a particular body I'm trying to remember. They will know the best because it's a professional body. It's a professional school, you know. So they will be able to
Hello?
prescribe, as it were.
Okay,
You
thank
know, I
you.
mean, yeah. So I think it's a bit more of a controlled conversation. I really want to watch as this unfold, as opposed to just saying my own thoughts and mind, as it were.
Absolutely, thank you. And then I'm moving on to the next headline. It says that insurance firm motivates Unilag student with 2.5 million fund. So according to the headline, a particular organization that is focused on insurance, that is an insurance firm, is giving 2.5 million for the next 10 years. And the goal is that every year they will give the best graduating student 250,000 naira to encourage and to motivate them to, I guess, be the best they can be within this field. And so I think it's a laudable thing. And I love the fact that they're not just like, they have a goal is for the next thing. Is that really sometimes hard to see, like, so this is really a good development, at least in terms of the way they're planning about it and saying, okay, we're committing for the next 10 years and this is the fund, and then we're going to give it to the best graduating student in Unilag. And so I think that's progress, and that is a good thing. And I hope that hopefully more firms or more organizations, irrespective of the industry, can do more of this. Your thoughts, Mr. Rotimi?
Hello, Dr. Moto, are you there?
Yes, yes. I said, what are your thoughts?
Oh, okay, because it was breaking. So I feel it's a great one, but I'm looking forward to a time where we will have much more than in induced interventions of private organization. I believe that we need to get to a point where we don't just induce and incentivize our education institutions, or better still, our students. But I think that there's a particular aspect that organizations and corporate Nigeria needs to step into, which is actually the development demands for education and the country itself. So when you look at it, there is the activation side, whether you're promoting your brand or product, or you're just doing good give back like CSR. But then there's another side that is developmental, which is almost like it's by design, that the corporate entities in Nigeria must put their hands together to deliberately develop the education system, because they are going to be one of the most beneficiaries of it in any ways, and so I think we need to get to that point where we will not just throw some few millions out there, but now commit endowment funds, commit development funds. Just like you have the TED fund, you have corporate Nigeria funding, education. So students do not see it as an opportunity and a largesse. You should see it as a mandate as of some sort. That's what I think.
Thank you, and I agree with you because you're right. I wish they've done it like we can have more of those even before, not after. And you're right because it's like it can be a pathway, and then beyond that is like I remember like there will be like, at least from my own experience, like with the scholarship that I got, there always going to be a leadership development component, a community service development component throughout my undergraduate education. So they were already preparing me for the field. They were already preparing me for what I would do. Not that they waited until after I graduated before now saying that, oh, yes, you can take this money and things like that. And so, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And then on to our next headline. It says CSOs meet to discuss security in Nigerian school. So according to this headline, apparently over 40 civil societies from 6 different geopolitical zones have converged in Abuja for a 3-day training on school safety, security, and building resilience system. The program is set to be part of the follow-up on Safe Schools initiative of the African Union, an intervention on girls' education. And this particular forum was organized by the Development Research and Project Center and in collaboration with Education in Emergency Technical Working Group. And in this, the permanent secretary said that ensuring safe school is a national priority that the federal government is taking seriously, and they are urging civil societies to take the step down training with all the dedication required, and also asking them to contribute to the so they're basically saying that they want to address school safety, and hopefully they believe that this will ensure quality of education, improve enrollment and completion rate of education. And so so that is the main gist of the headline. And then I wonder if this was sort of like spur on by what happened recently with the Dowen College and the student that died also. And then also I also beyond just what is said about school safety, which is like a buzzword to me now, and I think it's a big buzzword right now based on the current what has happened in recent time. What exactly is entailing school safety? So that was something that I was hoping to hear more of, that I didn't see in that body of that headline. And what does this look like? What approach, what framework are they looking at it from? Any perspective, Mr. Rotimi? Can you hear me? No, we cannot hear you.
Your internet seems to be
Oh,
breaking up.
okay, we can hear you now. Sorry. I was asking you for your
Yes. So
perspective.
in terms of security, I think it's going to be the conversation between now into the new year, if not even up to the first quarter of the new year. Um, there's always been the need to have safety consciousness, but now there's always a need to also improve safeguarding. The situation on ground has also heightened the conversation around securing our schools, either from external threat or from internal gaps. And this is what it is. I'm not surprised, but it's what will happen. Okay. So let's
All
move
right,
on to the
thank you
next
so much.
headline.
Yes, yeah, moving on to the next one. So this is saying, I don't know how to pronounce this. Mr. Rutimi, help me. How do you pronounce this drug? This
Umpurimiri.
okay, thank you. Mupurimi. That's like a
Umpurimiri
tongue
is forbidden
twisting.
in our varsity. Anyone found culpable risk
Risk being
sack
sacked.
from
Yeah.
Professor Ilom.
Yes, so according to this headline, it's saying that they are having a strict policy against hard drug use. So apparently, this is an hard drug, and so they're saying that it's not just the students that will be expelled, but if they find a staff member that uses it, then they're also going to expel them. They're going to sack them. Okay, and then on to the next headline. Searching. Expiration of, can you hear me? Expiration of ultimatum, you hear from us within
I
24
think I
hours.
can.
Okay, so it's our next headline is about ASU, and they were saying they were going to go on strike if the federal government does not give them the things that they are demanding. And it seems as if now that the specific time that they've given to the federal government is over, they are considering we actually starting another they're going to start another round of strike if this is not taken care of. So any thought on that, Mr. Rotimi? Okay, next one. It says Sylvester Oromoni Ibi Joke Sanwo-Olu reacts to death of Darwin student. And so we've talked about this issue, and I think it will keep coming up in the headline, right? And so the first lady has publicly issued like a first time kind of statement about this issue, and that is believed that it was a big slap on the education sector, and that things needs to be different going forward. And on to the next. This is an interesting one. Can you move? Okay. So now they said the family, just continuing on the last headline, saying that the family have hired Femi Falano against the secondary school where this happened. And so I think this will be a very interesting thing that will keep unfolding. I don't think this is over anytime soon. and it seems as if they are willing to go all the way to hopefully make sure that this does not happen to any other student or any other family in the future. So, like Mr. Rotimi said yesterday, there's so many components to these, and so many people are being affected on different scales. So, I think we'll keep our opinions until we see what how this all plays out in the future. Right. On to the next. It says, is a disgrace. Castle sacks lecturer who hacks female students to write examination in his bedroom. And I think this is interesting and not interesting at the same time to me, because I thought this was like the days of these lecturers doing this is over. And so I'm just like, I'm glad that they took the action that they did in sacking this specific person. And I hopefully this can serve as a caution to any potential lecturer or professor or teacher that thinks that they can get away with having this kind of misconduct and threatening students with either failing them if they don't sleep with them, or if they give them specific, if they ask them to do specific things that is not in alignment with what they really are supposed to do as they continue their educational pursuit. And so I'm glad that this action was definitely taken, and hopefully this will deter any other kind of person thinking about doing this kind of things to students. All right, and then moving on to the next headline. I believe this will be our last. So, according to the headline, JAM has introduced 4 new literature texts for language subjects. And so, one of those subjects is Arabic, and also for Hausa, Igbo, literature in English, and Yoruba. And so, they're announcing publicly, and they've provided the names and the author of these books. And so, for students to get ready, since I guess that will be reflecting in the coming examination as we go forward. And I believe that's all that we have for today for the headlines. And now Mr. Arotimi will introduce the topic. Last one, it says the greatest
Hello,
problem facing.
yes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Just continue, carry on.
Oh, yeah, it says that education, the greatest problem facing Nigeria. And so, yes, this headline is basically saying that there is a leadership disaster since our Independence Day, since we've had our independence, and that right now there's really little to write home about after 61 years of being politically independent, and that because we have no enduring policy framework, and that our leadership is not at its best, this is now being trickled down into the education system. And so they're hoping that the key issue, they're saying that the key issue is illiteracy, and that if this is not addressed, that it's going to is going to contribute to more problem. And this is, and so they're imploring that hopefully education is taken seriously, and that hopefully this can solve some of the challenges that we're seeing in our leadership. What are your thoughts, Mr. Rotimi?
Sorry, please, the question again.
Oh, I said, what are your thoughts regarding this headline saying that education has led to the leadership problem that we have currently in Nigeria?
Well, I'm sure you know my stand on 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 this, as it were. I feel that several people have articulated what they feel is the greatest problem, right? I would always stick to the fact that we don't have a problem of illiteracy, right? Illiteracy it's a fallout of the problem of education. Several problems that we see today, as a result, several things we call problems today are pretty much as a result of the real problems that we are not seeing. You know, Literacy would be illiteracy would be an outcome or a reality when something is not in place. That thing that's not in place is the problem. So, for example, when you have teacher quality issues, when you have limited teacher supply, when you have mismanagement of education, when you have unregulated regulators, those things are the problems. And when those things come up, guess what happens? It will end up having a situation that will be created as literacy or illiteracy issues. Do you understand? So all the things that we see today, truth be told, they are symptoms, not the problem. So our greatest problems are like 4 or 5, and then it's now finding expression in the nature abhors vacuum. So when you don't do something, or when you don't manage something well, or when you don't drive something effectively, the fallout is what we begin to see. I don't know if you're able to get that, Dr. Motola.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I got it. And you're absolutely right that it's more of a symptom, not the problem itself. Thank you for that. And then transitioning now to our topic for today, would you like to give us some intro?
Okay, so it's actually a topic you can twist in different direction, and that's why I really call it interesting. Why? Because it simply says, "Is this the end?" And it's a question that is open-ended. Of course, is also targeted to the individual. Our conversation today is basically to just look at the things that we call challenges, difficulties. Sometimes we look at it as failures, failures of the organizations, failures of the sector, failures of leadership, failures in different areas. But the question is this: when you look at the way people speak, when you look at our disposition, our approach, even to scandals. Take, for example, the current news of the 12-year-old, you know, and you see our body language. You are almost tempted to ask this question: is this the end? Are we speaking to end things? Are we speaking to start things? Are we speaking to shut things down? Are we speaking to solve things? Those things are very important, because if it is not the end, then our decisions should be better informed, our behavior and disposition should be better informed. And so, really, that's the question. And if we want to look at it also for Dowen College as well, probably we need to ask ourselves, is this the end of this school? And why are we thinking that way? Of course, you have to put the permutations together, the patterns coming together, So, pretty much that's it. The end is a relative word in this context, and we can apply it on different levels. So I want our conversation to be quite broad, robust, so that we look at it from different angles. Is this the end? Is this the end of your pursuit? Is this the end of your expertise? Is this the end of the chance you'll be given? How do we deal with tough situations and tough challenges? Over to you, Dr. Motola.
Thank you. And yes, I agree that we can look at these at different angles. And so I would like to start with the Dowen College angle. For me personally, I don't believe that this should be the end of the school. Yes, something terrible has happened, but I believe that there is hope, and there can be specific things that can be put in place to ensure that this never happen again. So there needs to be some check and balance. And so I will hope that this will not be the end. Yes, it should be taken seriously. Yes, the due process should be done, but I don't believe that this is the end. I still believe that they can come out of this and rebrand, not like in the sense of just putting up fresh paint, but actually looking at what is going on, and also focusing on um, what's next. And then, like, also when we think about how did they even get here, like, because I'm sure, according to the little news that I've read about this um, school, they are one of the top ones. And it's not even like a public school, right? If it was a public school, we say, oh, it is expected, but this is a private school. So how did they even get to this point where bullying became so rampant, and nothing was, or at least policies were not put in place to protect students, and now it has led to the death of a student, and now everyone is now paying attention and sitting up. And so yeah, bullying is a big issue, and I know that it can be very, very like it has so many different repercussions on students and everyone involved, especially those that are victimized because of those that are bullying them. And so, like this issue of bullying, I think my question would be, and if Mr. Richard, you want to tell us your thought on this. Should schools have a policy when it comes to bullying, and what should that entail? If like you were just generalizing a little bit to say, as they think about the future for this not to happen again, what does that look like? Like, is this the end of just not having a statement or policy towards bullying? And what should that look like? Either school is trying to say, you know what, we don't want this to happen again. We are going to take lessons from what has happened. What is the way forward in terms of creating that?
Your, your network seems to be breaking.
Really? Yes, I've tried to. Let me see if I can go off and come back. But, but did you hear the question?
Ted,
I said, did you hear the
I
question I
didn't get the
asked?
question clearly.
Yeah, I was saying that regarding bullying, that I was asking that is this the end of not having a specific policy or stand on bullying? So what can school do going forward?
All right.
Let's say,
Is this the end of bullying? Is that what you're saying?
yes, like and schools not having a
All right.
policy
Thank,
regarding it.
thank- so thank you for that question. I hope what you could also type it in the chat. Um, if it's bullying, when we say is this the end of bullying, it it will be very it will be very interesting to say that this is the end of bullying. I don't think that this is the end of bullying. Because bullying in a sense, if you look at what bullying is, I think bullying will always, always, always be there. It's almost like saying, is this the end of evil? Evil sometimes just finds a way. Um, um, Evil tends to find a way of having its ugly head. However, I think this would be the end of being passive, about the subject matter. A lot of people have not really been honest with the fact that bullying has been downplayed, because most people just do things because, oh, it is the trend. So it's trending to have no bullying week. It's trending to say no to bullying. But the truth of the matter is, you will now begin to hear heavy sanctions. You begin to hear policies that are stronger. You begin to see consequence management in schools now. In fact, I was speaking with a school CEO yesterday, and they are thinking of some measures, and they're already announcing to the parents that, look, you can see what's going on. It's not just this one-sided thing. We need to hold our students more accountable to their behavior. Hence, there are certain things we will not tolerate. There are certain things we want parents to own up to. Everybody in their own way will begin to come up with stuff. You know why? Because they are now seeing how damaging. There's nothing like, well, it wasn't the school or it wasn't the teacher. It was student to student. It has far-reaching effect and consequences. So I think it's going to be the end of being passive, at least for a while. It might not be the total end of bullying, because bullying comes in different shapes and sizes. Not giving people an opportunity to speak up is also bullying of some sort. Not permitting people, to have a voice is a bullying of some sort. Shutting people down in their expression is a bullying of some sort. So I would say that it's important. It's important for us to know that this will be the end, well, not the end of bullying, you know. But it's some schools will see their end. Let me tell you what I'm saying. It will be the end of some schools, and let me tell you what I mean. When we say the end of some schools, um, the way the process and the system of that school has been operating, we will see an end to it. It will come to an end where schools will be unilateral in nature, in their decisions, in their operations. A lot of schools do not seek help because of the value they place on providers of help. Some schools see consultants are people who are just trying to money monk, who are just trying to get money from them out of the profit they've been able to make. Some people look at consultants, they look at trainers, they look at experts as if they are people who are just unreasonably expensive, not realizing that they are actually meant to be partners in progress. And because of such realities, you will begin to see an end. It will create an upsurge for the need to engage practitioners who are not just vocal, because that's the temptation where people attract themselves to shiny objects, because some people are very vocal. Some people will think that's what makes them to seek for their help, professional help and intervention. But it has to go beyond shiny objects. It's not all professionals and experts that will be the talk of town, that will be the most visible ones. However, it's going to be the end of that culture where schools will discount the opinion of experts. You know, it will be the end of some schools in their approach, to management. It will be the end of some schools in their relationship with parents, because now it's no more a convenient marriage. It has to work. So school parent relationship has to become a gold mine, and not because you don't want them to leave your school, but you don't want your school to end because of them. So people now will not treat parents just from one-sided approach that we want to keep you in our school. But people also recognize that investment for years, think about it, a school that has been on for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 30 years can kind of come crashing down just because of one mismanaged scandal or crisis. And guess what? All the rest becomes history. That's what I feel. So is this the end? Yes, but it's also the beginning, because the end of an old is the beginning of the new. Good morning, KK. Good morning, Shona.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yes, welcome, KK, and welcome, Olushala. But I want to follow up, and then I'll open this up to our other analysts. I think, and you might correct me if this is wrong, but I feel as if we are being one-sided when we look at this conversation in terms of this recent happening. Because yes, I think right now the focus is on private schools, right? But I really believe that I'm sure there are a lot of injustice too in this kind of issue of bullying happening in the public schools. And it seems as if when we talk about these, how can we encourage government to also, like what you just described, take a stand and ensure that they can improve their process and policies and not just do business as usual? Because I think it has to be both. We cannot hold one to one standard and one to another. And so yes, I know right now the real issue is on private school because of this happening in a private school setting. But I believe that it's happening in the public school as well, and we just don't know a lot about it because those ones they are voiceless, and sometimes nobody cares unless it happens to somebody that has the means and the money to make noise and things like that. And so that will be my follow a thought I want us to think about. I mean, you don't have to answer it now, but just something to think through as we continue this discussion. Okay, thank you. So welcome, KK. If you would like to add to the conversation, we're asking the question, is this the end? And so one of the questions that we pushed forward was, is this the end of bullying? Is this the end of Dowen College, where this issue happened that this 12-year-old died? And then also thinking that, is this the end of being like apathetic about bullying and being passive about bullying? So I would like your thought on this. And then we'll move on to Mr. Olushola.
Thank you so much. Beautiful question. So is this the end? Of course, in things like this that are so, what's the word? Monumental is the word that I would use. It definitely is the end, because it would cause a shift, you know, it would cause a shift in thinking, it would cause a shift in operations, it would cause a shift in relationship management, it would cause a shift in so many different ways. So in a sense, this, I'm hoping, signals the end to boarding houses just loading their children, loading children in rooms, and not even having a proper maintenance culture, right? And like you rightly mentioned, it's not just about public school, private schools, it's in public schools as well. I was saying to somebody that my husband is going to be 50, right? And he mentioned that back in the day, students had knives, you know, seniors would use knives to carve their names on the back of junior students, you know, and that was back then when he was in secondary school. Horrible, isn't it? And the way they knew about it was when those seniors were brought out and disciplined. My husband went to Janiki, you know, so it's not like as if, and back then, the Janiki was seen as an amazing school, because you really didn't have private schools proliferation the way we have it these days, right? So that was seen as one of the most amazing schools then. But that was happening at that time, right? He said to me, he said, KK, some of us don't have pictures, some of us don't have videos. It has always been bad, right? And sometimes you go home and you talk about it, and it's not given the weight that it should be given, you know, and that is the same issue that we have here, right? So again, if what would happen is if children come and say, oh, I'm not this about my school, parents would unfortunately take it with a, so I can't even tell you how many phone calls we've had since last week to today. Any little thing right now is investigated, but thank God we have a culture of openness. So we're like, oh, please come in, let's discuss it. So we're having all these conversations all around the school right now because people are worried, right? And so I'm happy about that, because finally parents are beginning to take their children's education seriously, not just leaving them in school and walking away, right? We've had instances where we call parents, your child is not feeling well, please come and take your child. They don't come till the end of school. Why? So I'm hoping that this will signal the end. And then that child has to be in the sick bay. The nurse is with the child, but you can see the child is uncomfortable and needs to go home, right? And unfortunately, you know, there's some things that we cannot talk about right now because it led to a death. But I mean, if you look at some things, you want to poke holes in so many situations that happened, right? But you can't right now because of stuff that has happened. You know, unfortunately, it's such a horrible thing that has happened. So that again will signal an end, right? To parents just nonchalant and feeling that, oh, my child is in school. Yes, they should be comfortable in school, but you're the parent. Can you just get up and do things that you need to do? I don't think it will signal the end of Dowen. So my daughter finished from Dowen, right? And my son is still a member, still a student in Dowen. He's in SS2. Dowen is not a bad school. I will say it over and over and over and over again. It is not a bad school. They've just made a lot of poor choices over the years. And I've taken them up on a few of their poor choices. And I'm not going to come on social media now because they're in a bad space and beat them into the ground. I think that's ridiculous. What people are doing, you know, it's ridiculous. And that in itself, I'm seeing some level of, let's not go there. You know, so I don't think, yes, will this change some of their processes? I hope so, right? Every school owes parents care, owes their students care, owes their staff care, owes the community care. That's something I'm not seeing. There's a lot of humanity. There's not a lot of humanity in some of the things that we do. And that I'm hoping that that's the end, right? Where you have appropriate student ratios, not because they're 16 or because they're 6 or because they're 6 months, but because they're children at the end of the day and they need some level of support. They need some level of supervision. If there was adequate supervision, my sisters and my brothers, some of this would not have happened, these conversations we're having today. And it is just sad that we're having these conversations, right? And it's a very painful situation. So yeah, the things will change. That's the reality, even for the school itself. And one thing I've noticed, you know, so yeah, that's some things I don't want to talk about on live radio. But I do hope that this is the end for just rubbish ways that we do things simply because children are in secondary school. We feel, oh, they don't need as much care, as much love, as much attention. They do. At the end of the day, they're children, and we owe every single member, every single child, and care, right? I mean, student ratios should not just end in primary school. They should have them in secondary school as well. And you're right, they should have them in public school. I was talking to Subeb, I think that was 2 Saturdays ago, and somebody was telling me of how a young girl was being abused by her mother had brought her to town. You know how you send a child to town to go and stay with your family members because they said they would send the girl to school. They did send the girl to school. But in the house and in the shop where the girl was working for them, the girl was being abused sexually, emotionally, physically. And that's not okay. The school had to rally around, put money together, call the girl's mother from the village to come and carry her child. How many people will do that? So we do have that, and we do have people who, even though they're in the public school sector, rise up to the challenge. That needs to be happening across the board. What are our quality of education happening? Where are our, we can go on and on with this conversation. So I do believe that it will signal an end in complacency. When people can walk up in the middle of the night and say, oh, what are the structures here? And go and check that things are happening in the hostels. This incident happened at night. Children are not quiet. Sound travels faster at night. It is louder at night. You can't tell me that those children were not screaming. How come nobody heard? Is it become a regular occurrence that nothing was done? You know, so we can go on and on and on. But I mean, one thing I do know that is the standards for the boarding school and the standards for day school are different, and that shouldn't be, right? If it's the same school, if there's enough care and enough visibility during the day, it should be happening in the evenings as well when the children are in the classrooms. Are in the hostel. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts, even though they were very fireful thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. And we love it that way. I think, like you said, this is a very emotionally charged issue and topic.
Let me say something.
Go ahead, Mr. Rotimi.
Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I totally, yeah. So I can understand. I can understand what KK is saying, and I also could filter some things that KK did not say that she said. You know, but the truth of the matter is, we're not going to, if conversations spill and not still have those conversations, because you know there are many downsides on this conversation, and a lot of sensationalism has taken over what has happened, you know, and you know, kind of carefully opened up. There are many sides that will take the fall for this. That's the truth of the matter. Unfortunately, you know how it is. It's almost like in this part of the world, people envy success. So the moment you're a brand, you're an organization out there, the moment you step into a period of crisis or scandal, the world is going to come for you. It will look like they've always wanted to say something bad. I'm excited. Just the likes of KK as a parent in Dowen, but honestly, it's going to be a tall order. It's going to be a tall order, because the way our regulators and the way the world has pushed this is in the decisions that have been made, especially for a brand. You don't say Jean without let me allow the people to talk. I think the internet is fighting me. Over
Yes,
to you,
thank
Omotola.
you so much. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rotimi. And yes, you're right. There's so many different outcomes that this can go by. But I really still want to re-emphasize what KK said, that this should not be the end of the of this school. Because of that, I believe that new policies, new things can be put into place to make sure that this does not happen again. And then I also opened up to Mr. Olushola before we go to our next question. Any thought on this? Please interject.
Thank you, Dr. Motola, and great submission there from Rotimi and Kiki. For me, I'm looking at it from the mental health point of view. It's a pity what happened, and the fatality is somehow irrecoverable. But I guess it's a wake-up call to all schools. When I joined, I overheard me talking about some school fees consultants are there to rip them off, this and that. Uh, the magnitude differ from school to school, but bullying goes on almost everywhere. I had been in a school that it was not student to student, it was the one of the cook to the student. And one of the students there told me, see, this is not who I am. This place turned me into this. So I had to call the school counselor. I said, see, as you are training your academic staff, please, you have to train your non-academic staff. Some of them don't know better. They shout down on the students, they call them names, they roll eyeball for them. And this thing goes a long way to affect the students emotionally and psychologically. But because no life was lost, so to say, at that moment, nobody seems to care. But I think it's an end to ineptitude. It will be an end to carelessness. It will be an end to just doing anything you like in the name of I'm a teacher, or I'm a house father or house mother, or I'm in charge of this or that. Now you know that you can be called out, not even in this time and age of social media. I think government will also rise up to the occasion, because worst thing like this goes on in public school. Like you have said, that because those children has nobody to make noise for them. But if government don't ride on this crisis to make things work and adjust, I tell you, a more terrible situation may happen in public institution, both at secondary and at tertiary level. So sleeping on things like this could bring more trouble, and it can escalate to the point that somebody who is the principal, somebody who is the commissioner or the permanent secretary can lose their job. In fact, it can escalate to the point that somebody can lose election, except we do something. I felt after we came out of COVID, schools should be more intentional, especially it has to do with mental health, the way students are being nurtured and cared for. We need to pay attention to the unspoken words. But it's as if nobody appeared to us. School felt, well, this is how we've been doing things. We're not ready to incur additional cost. But here we are, bad publicity. Even if there is damage control, it doesn't remove the fact that the school is become a villain and there is a victim somewhere. So I feel we should pay more attention and do more than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olushala. And I like that you talked about the fact that it's not just about student to student. There's also teacher to student, or non-academic staff to student, or even teacher to teacher as well. I heard of a situation where a teacher was refusing food for a 4-year-old because they said he was writing too slow. And so for the whole day, from breakfast to the time the parents came to pick this child up, they didn't give him food because they felt like that's how they could motivate him to do better. And I think that's a form of, like you said, a mental like a mental and emotional sort of like abuse in that case. But you're right, this is definitely something that the government should not sweep under the carpet, and hopefully this will have a broader implication for like policies going forward, not just for the secondary school, but like you said, the primary and tertiary, and also both for public and private in that regard. So thank you so much, everyone. And then one last question as we round up the show. My question is, we focused a lot on what has happened, what can be done in a way. And then the other thing is like just thinking about what, like in your own opinion, and I know this can still be a charged topic, what do you hope or what do you foresee as outcome for Dowen College? And then also as we're thinking, what are ways forward? Like if we are to be like, and I know Mr. Shola started a little bit and even KK add something, but if you were in like a school like Dowen's college shoes, what will you do differently? Like, because like we said, this should hopefully not be the end of this school. I believe there is more good than just this bad that has occurred. But in being practical and in looking forward, what can, like, if you can come up with 1, 2, 3 steps of things that can be done to ensure that this never happens again what will you propose? What will you suggest? And we can start with KK. Thank you.
That was a lot of questions in one. I'm trying to wrap my head around all the questions that you were asking. But I mean, what I think I heard you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is what would I propose if I was doing as a way forward out of this situation? Okay, so the first thing that I had proposed, and I had been very vocal about it, was the tone of the initial communication that they brought out. I thought that was very stupid of them. You don't bring out such communication in a situation like this. I don't know who advised them. Probably all these so-called consultants that know nothing about education that Mr. Rotimi was talking about. And so the first thing that I would have said is, you know what, reach out to the parents and then bring out a communication that is reflective of you as a human being, right? You're just not a face or an institution. There are people that are running those institutions. The second thing that I would say in this situation for Dowen is have CCTV cameras on your corridors. You can't have them in the rooms. I can't even imagine that somebody would say you should have a CCTV camera in the room and in the bathroom. I'm like, are you people it's not done. You know, so they should have them on the corridors just so that they can watch. The way I know their hostels are structured is that they have levels, right? So there are levels for each. So the way at least in girls' hostel, because when my daughter was doing her finals, she stayed in the hostel because it was easier for her. So the SS3 level is at the very top level, and that's how it's leveled from JSS to SS, like that. So each level, I believe, should have a housemaster or a house mistress. So what that means is that they need to have adequate supervision on each floor of that hostel, and that person who is there is not just to put a face there or somebody who has no authority. They need to empower that person, train that person, such that if there are issues, the children can go to that person and that person can step up to the plate, right? So that's something that I would advise them. And then what are the adequate numbers that they have in each of their hostel rooms? I think that number needs to be adhered to. If parents are asking for more, then they should have a system where they have a quota for their out of Lagos children and their quota for Lagos children. I can tell you, maybe not for a fact, but over 70% of those children in hostel live in Lekki. You know, so perhaps we should look more at out of Lagos children. And then if issues come out in boarding house, what should they do? If you don't take a bully out of the system where they have become a bully, they remain a bully in that system because they have created an institutionalized bullying system within there. So they should, if there are incidents regarding students, because at the end of the day, these students have bad behavior. They're not bad people, right? It's the behavior that we're trying to address, not the person. So they should take out that person from that system. So those children, if it was alleged and they had been proven to be people who were not behaving in the right manner, they had no business still being in the hostel. So that's something that I would say. That's regarding the hostel, quite few. But then if you then come into the school system, their counselors, their school counselors should be adequately empowered to do the right thing. I run a system, right? And honestly, my system runs without me. People are empowered to do their job. So it's not just having the jobs, but then the right people should be in the right jobs. And they should actually be accountability structures, open structures. Somebody talked about PTA and I said, it's not about PTA. I've seen PTA where it is the school that is running the PTA. So is that a PTA, right? So proper accountability structures, proper responsibility, proper communication mechanics, right? And then it's not just about calling a mom, call the mom and the dad. So again, communication tools that are actually make sense, and then communicate the gravity of the situation. Don't try and hide it. I've had a child who had to be stitched before in my school, you know, and it happened. It was painful. We cried buckets, but at the end of the day, the parents took the child out, but they brought him back. Do you understand? Because of the way we handled it, these things happen. You know, so that's something that should have been done. They should affiliate themselves with a hospital. Yes, your school clinic can be great. Yes, you can have amazing doctors, but affiliate yourself to a hospital. Even us, we are affiliated to 2 hospitals. When situations are getting out of hand, take the child straight to the hospital because you know that your school clinic might not be equipped for it, right? It doesn't make you a bad school, it makes you responsive. So those are the things that I would say if I was, you know, an owner or somebody in Dowen. And finally, because a child is in secondary school doesn't mean that you shouldn't have adequate student support, right? So the counselor has a lot of work to do, and it's not just putting it on paper, right? The children need to understand what is anti-bullying, what are child protection strategies. Parents need to know these are the steps. It's not just saying this is our child protection strategy. Everybody has it. But what is being done? How is it being used? Do people relate with it? You know, and those sort of things is what I would say. And not just for Dowen, to be honest, but every single institution who has their doors open to human beings. Yeah, that's it from me. Back to you, Dr. Matola.
Thank you so much, KK. That is like, those are really great and very specific and manageable things that they can definitely do. Mr. Rotimi, would you like to add on to this?
Okay, I think that it's tough to always, we are talking actually out of benefit of hindsight. So it's when you run an organization and you are in the heat of the moment, it's service failure do occur. We don't pray for it. I believe nobody plans to deliberately, fail in their service promise. But the truth of the matter is this, right? Most of the things that will cause us harm is as a result of gaps in our services. And if you listen to what KK was saying, you'll be able to catch that message. Is I don't think Doen is a bad school as well. I've known Doen for years. And I'm not going to be sensational because everybody's throwing the school under the bus. I just joined the whole community to say something bad. Sometimes if you don't have anything to say, don't say anything at all. Doesn't make you less an expert. Doesn't make you less a voice. However, I think that you know, if we if I were to be in a school, I will pay more attention to gaps because those are the things that messes us up. Supervision gaps, monitoring gaps, culture and care gaps. All those things allow vices to breed. And you can't tell what vices. Today it might be bullying. We've had situations of swimming gaps where there's a facility gap that led to a child drowning in a school. That's not a bullying situation, but it was as a result of gaps. And the school eventually will be found culpable. I'm sure there are some people who have policies and it's just a document. They don't have reorientation, they don't revisit policies. It's a gap. Do you understand? Documentation gap, orientation gap, enrollment gap, no consequence management. That's a gap. So I think I'll pay more attention to gaps because that's the only way to try as much as possible to minimize. And think about it, our responsiveness is poor when it comes to crisis. I think that if schools can have advisory board, if schools can have normal boards, I think because of the situation of the day, it's time for schools to have crisis management board, which is basically getting people like KK, getting people like Olushola, getting people like Omotola, like Eitai, like Rhoda. They don't have to be employed. They just have to be people almost like advisory board, but this time around, they're just there for crisis. These are people who understand messaging, who understand skillfulness of responsiveness, who understands timeliness, who understands brand management, relationship management, and stakeholders management. So that imagine when that thing happened. If the school, as bad as the situation was, if the school had a very good narrative, I don't think it would have escalated this way. Honestly, that's my thought. But you see, it's like something bad has happened. You now poured oil, or how do you call it? You made the matters worse. You were a bit distant, you were delayed, you didn't show vulnerability. Your words and choice of words showed that you were covering up, and then things started blowing out of proportion. Honestly, the school did not, position itself. So I feel that that's what I would do differently. But then, of course, I'm just saying that with benefit of hindsight. We don't pray because trust me, it's time for people to stop limiting school administration to administrators. School administration involves everybody, from the staff to the leader. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then before I let Mr. Olushola say something, I was going to talk about something that happened in terms of what you just said, Mr. Rotimi, about school administration, not just limited to the school owners alone, but is everybody. So I also went to a boarding school, like in Nigeria, for my a part of my secondary school education, but like transitioning over here to the US, like for my college education, I had the privilege to be part of a student conduct board or student conduct advisory board, like you're proposing. And it was a constitution of students, lecturers, and then non-academic staff. So if there are situations that happen, then it comes to us and then we'll have a meeting and we'll go through like an investigation process. And it's from bullying to anything. So recently, last week, something happened to a student in my department at the university I teach at, where they were supposed to do an assignment and a male student threatened a female student because she refused to accept money when he was asking that she should write his own part of the assignment. And so he insulted her, called her names, and said that he's going to find her and do something to her. So immediately she has an advisor, like as a professor, beyond just teaching. I have about 30 to 40 students every semester that I'm their advisor. So every faculty have that. So immediately there's a process where she said, I need to meet with you. And she explained the situation, and immediately, like, we had to put it, like, we sent it to the student conduct board so that it didn't escalate to an issue of now, like, stalking and, like, like threat of life and things. And like, and that happened. So I absolutely agree with you that it's so critical. Like, imagine this school has over 50,000 students. So if you now say he's the administrator that is responsible for this, like, a lot of things will fall into those gaps, like you said. But they've made it such that they try to fill the gap with saying, you know what, we need people for this. Who is going to volunteer to be on advisory board? Who is going to, and then there is a protocol and system to go through in our way. So I think absolutely more than ever, we need this in our institution, and hopefully things change for better. And you're right, we have the privilege of eyesight, but also they could have done better with the way that they addressed him. And then now I'll let Mr. Olushola talk, and then we'll round up the show. Mr. Olushola, any last parting shot?
Thank you. I think KK and Rotimi have done justice to that concept. I'll just pick 1, 2, 3 things. Rotimi spoke about gap. I think having the third eye helps us to fix those gaps. For me, as far as recruitment is concerned, both educators and the students, there should be personality profiling. And educators, teaching and non-teaching staff, should be trained on pastoral care, the issue of emotional intelligence, and for them to really be sensitive. Like I said, I was in a school. That was the first day I went there. We were just about taking photograph when I saw one of the students overly quiet. Of course, that triggered something within me. But the question is that same girl has been living with them in that school for years. It's as if nobody knew that her personality had changed. And of course, it doesn't have to take me 30 minutes to bring her out. It's a function of training. And every teacher needs to know he or she has that pastoral care to the students. You don't have to say, well, it's not my student. I'm just to provide them with food. Because anybody can salvage the situation, you know. It could be an house parent. It could be somebody who is in the kitchen. When they go for their meal, somebody notices something and will pass it on to somebody who can, you know, be of help and say, I noticed this, I noticed that. So I think teachers should be trained to have that third eye. I really feel for Dowen at this time. But I guess instead of casting aspersion or stone on them, is it not a time for everybody to reflect, especially school owners, especially educators? There are gaps maybe in your own school that has not brought about scandal. That's why you don't know the gaps are there. So instead of casting aspersion on somebody, is a clarion call to look inward. What are we not doing right? What do we need to do better? So personality profile everybody that comes in. You must find out where they are coming from. Having their knowledge about the antecedent of a child will help. Of course, unfortunately, that there are parents who hide away. If your child is having personality disorder, it's part of the thing you are supposed to let the school know that this, my child, has this, that, and this could lead to trigger, this could bring crisis. It doesn't mean they won't accept that child. But when you keep quiet on such things, I think such parents are wicked. Because you know your child more than anybody. At least that child is coming to that school for the first time. Nobody knows him or her yet. Why don't you give them the to do medical test, comprehensive one? You have to subject them to psycho whatever.
Mr. Olushola, are you still there? Can anyone hear him?
No, I think he's breaking out.
We bring out those things into that. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
So with that, we'll be able to know. And do you know, as great as medicine is, I will keep saying it, there are emotional problems that medication doesn't cure. It doesn't cure. It is therapy. So we need school psychologists, we need school counselor. Not all these people I went to school, I studied guidance and counseling, and the person doesn't know his right from his left. If I were a school owner now, the next point of call is that by the time we vacate next week now, is to train all my teachers for the coming year. And pack everybody out, dust them, every dust that has settled on them, and say, can you see what is going on? If this school goes down, you lose your job. It concerns you, it concerns me. I did the write-up about 3 days ago, the issue of mental health, a case of our institutions. If you think you don't want to spend, bringing a consultant, bringing a therapist, if crisis happen, do you know how much you will pay? What about the bad publicity? So I think it is better we pay, train our people, let them know what is it. Let us revamp the so-called old cultures and bring new cultures to bear, and let them. You have to be reading it to them every day. And nobody should drop the ball. We are human, really. We could be vulnerable. We have our own challenges. But when you retreat and sing this song over and over and over and over and over, I tell you, crisis like this will not erupt. Sincerely speaking, I feel for doing. Yes, social media is awash with a lot, and well, what can we say? I also commiserate with the parent of the boy. I didn't mean this boy didn't die now. I think there will be a time to live and relive again. But it's a pity. My heart really goes out to the parents. It's not easy. And I just hope that things like this will be caught, and everybody will be on our toes to give our best. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know we went way over time today, but I felt like this was a necessary conversation. And thank you to our tribe members that joined live, and those that are going to watch this later. If you have comments and suggestions too, please feel free to leave it on the YouTube channel. Comments, we'll read it later. And we are going to round up with our usual positive, upbeat phrase. And so on the count of 3, and also thank you to our analyst, KK Olushola, Mr. Rotimi. Thank you for your perspective. Thank you for your insights. And hopefully all of these things hopefully start taking form and shape, and school owners, schools, and everyone alike, parents, will also really take up their role and their part in making sure that education system and policies get better so that this never happens again. With that, we're going to round up the show, and we're looking forward to hosting you again tomorrow on your favorite show. So 1, 2, 3.
It's always a great morning on a Good Morning Education Show.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.